What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe as you tune in and you check out the content, right? And so, with that being said, I want to speak about an episode of Scat Attack, man, that I really enjoyed, and he basically spoke about the demise of ESPN, right? The humiliating demise of ESPN, right? And I thought in this podcast, he raised a lot of good points. He made a lot of good points, right? And so what I want to do is I want to play the audio and react to it. But before I play the audio, I
Hey, what's
just
up, everybody? This is Charles Advanson.
oh
Welcome
man, I
in.
messed up. Before I play the audio, I want to I just want to say that even before I saw this video about Scat, right? And he was talking about like I said, the demise of of ESPN. I thought that ESPN they kind of got away from like what people liked about them and appreciated about them in the past, and they became more of a political show. Um, Number one, and I think that people didn't want that from a sports show. They also were opinion based instead of fact based more often. You know what I mean? They it was more so about the different personalities and what they thought. You know, when I think that they should have leaned into their strength, meaning that they had access that people don't have, and they had, like had access to players, so you could bring players on and give a different type of insight. Whereas though the fans, there's a thirst for that, and they had, they could do that. And fans, even today, like everybody who have a podcast, they don't have access to professional athletes. So basically, if you have a podcast, most people have a podcast, they're giving their opinion from a fan, from the fan standpoint, not because they sat down and they spoke with, LeBron James or some other famous basketball player or some famous football player. So instead of them leaning into the leverage that they already had, they became political, they became woke, and they tried to capitalize and market that. And I think it alienated their fan base. It opened the door, in my opinion, for people with smaller platforms who were willing to be genuine and upfront. It opened the door for them and allowed them their credibility to put them in a situation where they could compete with ESPN, right? Because as and I'm always reading like the comments and stuff like this, people are saying, they don't watch ESPN no more. Like if you want to have an honest conversation, then you can find a podcaster or somebody that you like, and you can just follow their content. But you don't have to listen to Stephen A. Smith yelling to the microphone or Ryan Clark, race bait, whether you agree with what Ryan Clark is saying or not. Like a certain segment of the audience is really going to be turned off and alienated because like being right is not the point. It's about, is this the place all the time for that, for that for that type content. Like people nowadays, they complain about the WNBA. Like the WNBA always have a some type of political agenda, or now that they're talking about trans athletes and stuff like that, right? When if you want to if you want to see Caitlin Clark play basketball, or you want to see Angel Reese play basketball, or the young lady Olivia Miles play basketball, as a basketball fan, you're not really concerned about like should trans athletes, be able to play with women or not. At least I'm not, and so there's always a political agenda, and so that alienate the fans, and it takes away from the amount of attention, the amount of money that they can make. So I'm gonna play some of what Scap said, and I'm gonna react to what he said. 'Cause like I said, I really think that the demise is of ESPN is their own fault.
Well, if you grew up during a certain time, you knew that ESPN was the powerhouse in sports. As the tagline goes, the worldwide leader in sports, the entertainment and sports programming network, as it was originally called, and which was founded on September 7th of 1979, has a logo so iconic it hasn't changed since 1985, a golden age, which was so prominent and pronounced that they really were the worldwide leader in sports. Hell, ESPN almost was sports. Now, though, today, reduced almost to a punchline and a laughing stock, a cautionary tale as to what happens when you make the wrong decisions. They were recently hit with yet another round of high-profile layoffs, what seems to be an ongoing trend for them over the past several years now, as they continue to double down on the likes of Stephen A. Smith and now Pat McAfee. Some may ultimately make the case ESPN sealed their fate around 2016. Not my words, Ryan Clark's.
Never before has sort of partisanship had divided the country in the way that it has. Since 2016, that's been what it is.
And sure, that is the year, of course, Donald Trump made his meteoric rise to power, but it was also around that time that corporate America, and perhaps even more prominently, the entertainment world at large, and yes, we're talking about Hollywood and professional sports leagues in the United States of America, well, they went down a specific pathway that they believed, in my estimation, was meant as a course correction in the opposite direction of the MAGA movement and everything that represented.
All right, so let me just say this. I think it goes back even further than that, right? Because I can remember years ago, way before Donald Trump even got into the office, talking about like some of the comments and some of the stances that Stephen A. Smith took, right? And so, you know, you always, in my opinion, I always got the impression that it was more about pushing an agenda, a certain narrative. So this comes way before, even when you go back to, like I said, way before Donald Trump and stuff like that. Not that I'm a Donald Trump fan or anything like that, but I just think that Stephen A. Smith has always been the kind of sportscaster that really, he was always opinion based. And so they got away from, people used to turn on ESPN for sports highlights, like the fantastic dunk. It was like watching sports in a microwave. Like you got the clips and you watch the dunks, or you watch the catches somebody made in an NFL game, or you watch the hit or something like that, or interception and a run back. People look forward to watching ESPN for that. But then then they started getting into that opinion based instead of fact based reporting. I think, in my opinion, which comes way before Donald Trump. But I think now the situation when Donald Trump was his first time in office, and then you had the Colin Kaepernick situation that magnified it. I can't say that it didn't. It just magnified it, and it caused more of a rift. I remember at the time saying, I'm not even going to watch football. And which I did get back to watching football, but I don't buy, I don't like, I used to buy like, my team is the Ravens, or was the Ravens. So I used to buy like Ravens t-shirts and Ravens, merchandise and stuff like that. I don't spend my money on that type of stuff no more. Right. I still like football and I support the athletes and stuff like that. But, I don't buy that kind of stuff. But anyway, I think it goes further back than 2016.
A movement that some now come to characterize as the woke agenda, a word and a movement which originally meant being aware of social and political unfairness and injustices, which has roots dating back into the 1920s, but a term which in today's day and age of 2026 is intended more as a criticism to denote an excessive performative focus on progressive social justice and identity politics, which most recently has signaled the demise of brands, entities, and businesses which have aligned themselves with that movement.
All right, so let me even speak about the woke agenda, right? Now, now that's true. Like certain brands are, they capitalize on this woke agenda. But this, again, is not new. Like when you had the civil rights movement back in the days, certain certain people used to benefit from what was going on, in the civil rights struggle. Then you had certain, you had like white people heading black organizations, right? So they can kind of direct these organizations in a certain way. So, it's always been there. I just think that nowadays it's more obvious and it's more prevalent because it's the country is so divided. It's just so much more for people to fight and argue about, and so everybody's all of a sudden woke because it's more profitable now, but back in the day, it was more undercover, because if the government wanted to control a certain movement, they would put certain people ahead of that movement, people that they can control, and so that's not new.
There is no doubt that ESPN falls within that specific group. I mean, Stephen A. Smith and Kendrick Perkins ran a disinformation campaign in 2023 to swing the NBA MVP voting away from Nikola Jokic and in favor of Joel Embiid.
It's only 3 guys that won the MVP that wasn't top 10 in scoring: Steve Nash, Jokic, and Dirk Nowitzki. Now, what do those guys have in common? I'll let it sit there and marinate. You think about it.
But to me, it's about more than just that. And for me, it's never really been about race baiting or politics. It's just primarily about putting shitty, unqualified, or untalented personalities on air. And even after ESPN went through their latest purge, which of course mercifully and hilariously included Ryan Clark, we still have the likes of Monica McNutt running around out there. And she was on recently reporting live about her mani and pedi.
I'm in the nail salon. I just got a lovely pedicure.
Oh, okay. Now I see the full picture. Okay.
This is the most honest moment. That woman is busy. What color did you go with?
It's a lovely, crisp, light pink for the summer. We love that.
The chair, one of those really lovely massage chairs.
Okay.
Listen, okay, real quick, bear with me, folks at home, if this is gonna make you dizzy. They gave me this table, Briscoe, and I had a lovely drink, and I'm just stretched out, and I could prop my phone up and watch the game during the show, and it's a lovely experience. I do recommend it.
And seriously.
All right, and so, point here being that if you are a football fan, why do you care that Monica McNutt is getting a manicure and a pedicure? What do that have to do with, whatever professional sport that you, that's not news. You know what I mean? I don't know. So that's, again, opportunity that they missed where they could be, promoting something worthy of people, their attention, but like I said, that's part of the downfall of them.
Who wants to watch this filth? Know thine audience. ESPN simply isn't about sports anymore. They have built their brand and their network around the personalities. And unfortunately for them, the vast majority of these personalities are pure trash. And this is a pretty general rule of thumb that no one wants to be lectured to about politics or ideological philosophies when they tune into a freaking sports network.
Because this is not okay. It's just not.
No one wants to hear one guy bemoaning about the inequities and unfairness of the Rooney Rule in one case, and then going on a 30-minute tirade about how one NBA team has too many white guys on it in another case.
We're moving in a reverse direction. Black men are not being treated fairly in the National Football League. Somebody got to say it. Somebody got to say it. You got to be kidding me.
Somebody got to say it, so I'm saying it. You ain't going anywhere being led by 3 white dudes in today's generation of basketball. I'm letting you know right now, it ain't happening.
The idiot.
And see, all right, so in that example right there, first you got Stephen A. Smith crying about black people not properly represented in the NFL. Then you got Stephen A. Smith on another clip talking about, you can't win with 3 white boys in the NBA, right? And so it's they grifting, they race baiting, and they doing a lot of things that's just not like sports, just not really like sports worthy. And so that's, you know, the whole point of why, you know, I like this podcast by the guy Scab, because it's just really they, you know, they facilitating their own demise, in my opinion. And so they try to be woke for profit, try to be grifters, and real sports fans really don't want that, you know. So that's my take. Make sure to like and subscribe. Also, don't forget to leave a comment. And with that being said, I'm gonna check y'all out in the next video. Peace.